Ladies and gents, welcome to UX, and this is why the Crusades were awesome. Actually, awesome. The guy is really happy. Yeah. Okay. Somebody told me I should watch this one. Probably someone from the Asmongold camp. I don't know. Awesome is kind of like a stretch. I think maybe my view will change once I watch this. But I guess okay, first of all, we don't have all the information because that's not how history works. History is written by the victor, and even that, it's not written perfectly, so we might not even have all the information there. But I'm gonna guess this is just another war, and wars usually have many dimensions to it. People say, "Oh, there's no need for war." Yeah, but this is also like kumbaya, let's hold hand. That's not how humanity works. So yeah, crusades, it was inevitable. This is a religious war, but religion was kind of part of the geopolitics at the time. So this is no different than any other geopolitical war. So it was going to happen anyway. But was it awesome? I don't know about that. It's going to be interesting. Let's watch this one.
The film Kingdom of Heaven was released to the world. The film takes place during the major historical conflict between the Christian world and
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Somebody told me I should watch that movie, and I kind of got to only intro, and I don't know why. I guess I wasn't in the mood for that religious movie, right? Because it had that grandeur type of element. Every scene, how people talk, and I know people tell me that it's a really good movie, and maybe one day I will get to it. I don't know. I was just I'm not now. It's I need to be in certain mood of okay, let's watch a religious movie. Even my most favorite movies like Lord of the Rings and things, I can't just watch it. I have to be in that mood because there is part of me this is just some fantasy bullshit. Why am I watching it? Shit like that. So this is one of those religious element movie. Yeah, there will be a day when I watch it, but it's just not now. So I don't know. But this is really famous movie. People really like it.
in the Islamic world that we today call the Crusades. Beginning in 1096, Catholic Europeans embarked on quests to retake the Holy Land and spread the faith to new areas of the globe. You would think that in a historical drama like this, we would get a fair portrayal of both sides, with the nuances of the conflict being shown. We don't. The film portrays the Christian Crusaders as bloodthirsty barbarians, while their Islamic opponents are shown as intelligent and peaceful. Now it should be said that Ridley Scott, the director of the film, is an atheist, so we can see why he deliberately decided to portray things this way.
Yeah, but isn't this movie has Suleiman the Magnificent? That's his name, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was respected. And by that I mean by everyone, Christian. There is not a single person, even his most staunch enemies like Christian kings and things, they all praise him. They talk in a respectable way when it comes to him. So maybe it's just the time period, right? Okay, there are many crusades, but this movie is just set in a period where the other guy is Suleiman the Magnificent. And if that is the guy, yeah, it's gonna be one-sided movie in a way because many respectable positive thing will be about that, right? Islamic people will basically have that kind of element to them. Because if the ruler is like that, the entire chain of command will be like that. Because it demands it. That's how kings work.
But regardless of Scott's motivation, the portrayal of the Crusades in Kingdom of Heaven reflects how they've been understood by a majority of Westerners for decades. Documentaries like the History Channel's Mankind, The Story of Us single out the Crusades as a uniquely evil chapter of human history.
I think of all the wars fought over religion. The Crusades belong in their own category.
It is one of the most shameful.
Wait a minute. You think all the religious shit that have happened in the past, crusades are the worst? At least crusade include war. A lot of religious conflicts usually is one-sided and genocide is involved. What are you even talking about? Yeah, crusade, at least there was one side versus other, it was an actual war, battle.
Undertakings ever embarked upon by our species.
In all of these cases, the same narrative is presented. One day, crazy Christians decided to attack the peaceful and enlightened Islamic world just because they could. The events are held as a staple of why we need separation of church and state, and why Catholicism should have no place in government. We're led to believe that if Christians have power again, they'll start unnecessary wars of religion, just like the Crusades.
Doesn't matter the reason. This is part of common sense and scientific thinking. Religion should not be part of any like governing body. It's just common sense. Even science is not part of the governing body, right? Diplomacy and like things should be the way it is, not influenced by something else. So it doesn't matter how we got there, like this just makes sense.
Crusades. But in reality, there are few events in history more misunderstood than the Crusades. This is why I'm making this video. The popular understanding of the Crusades is dead wrong, and I'm here to explain why. In this video, you'll be finding out why the Crusades were not only morally justified, but were actually a historic achievement. Buckle up, because there's a lot to cover.
Yeah, okay. I think he should explain it in a different way. He should choose words differently. Morally, this and that, like, usually words never have their element. But I get what he's trying to get at. We'll see the video, like, what point he's going towards, but yeah. And yeah, obviously, people are probably not going to, I didn't see the comments. People are probably not going to take kindly of these things because it's a YouTube video. It's not like you're publishing a fucking journal in some kind of column or something with evidence attached to it. It's a guy talking in a video, so people will be pissed off about it. But yeah, people need to realize like you need to take everything that a person says with a pinch of salt and still listen to it. This is a problem in modern world.
Let's travel back in time to 600 AD, roughly 500 years before the First Crusade. This is a map of the Christian world at that time. All the highlighted areas show where Christianity had spread and become the majority religion.
Romans,
wait a minute,
yeah.
Is that the Middle East and North Africa? Yes, it is. These two areas used to be Christian. People today think of these as Muslim lands, but that was not always the case.
Dude, let's go a bit more back, and it won't be Christian lands. Christianity didn't existed before. It was like, yeah. Obviously, Islam came later, but like, let's not go back and just like, oh, this was Christian. It was dominated by Roman emperors. That's why that was the case. But like, yeah, Persians and like you can like trace back at that level, I guess.
It all began when Christianity spread far and wide after being legalized by Emperor Constantine the Great with the Edict of Milan. This led to the Christianization of both the Western and Eastern Roman Empire. Even as the western part of the empire fell to barbarians, Christianity remained, and most of the barbarians also converted. So if that happened in Europe, what happened in the Middle East and North Africa? In the mid-600s, Arab warlords sprang out of the Arabian Peninsula and began conquering everything in their path. They brought with them their own religion, Islam, and unlike European barbarians, they did not convert to Christianity. The Middle East at the time was dominated by two superpowers, the Christian Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire, and the Zoroastrian Sassanid Empire. Unfortunately for them both, they had just fought each other in a gigantic war lasting 25 years and had drained themselves of key resources. Because of this, neither was prepared for the invasions that hit them. The Byzantines lost all of Africa and the Levant, while the Sassanid Empire collapsed completely. The most important loss for the Christian world, though, was the loss of the Holy Land. By 900 AD, Islam had expanded, by conquest, all the way to France and southern Italy. Now, I'm not going to moralize about this. Conquest and wars of expansion have been common all through history, and Islam followed in that same mold. However, Islam did take things a step further with its concept of jihad, or holy war. Muhammad was a conqueror who took slaves, and Islam has sought to emulate his example ever since. As a side note, this is also why slavery has always been common in the Islamic world and continues to be practiced there to this very day. But regardless of the morality of the Islamic conquests, they were, nonetheless, invaders who invaded the Christian world. Christians in conquered lands were second-class citizens.
Okay, first of all, I'm pretty sure Romans invaded Sassanids and take over that place. That's why Roman Empire was so big. And then Islamic horde basically took out Persians and they attacked them. So it's like back and forth. Like he said, you can't really see the conquest as a justification because Roman did the same thing before. As far as how, the jihad thing, yeah, that is kind of extremism. But slavery was common around the world, right? At the time, it didn't become like outlawed until pretty very late. So I don't know about that either. Like the video's point is like why was awesome and morally good, right? You can't really blame either side for anything and paint in that way like, oh, one side is completely bad for anything because they were all bad in a way. historical lens. But if you're trying to prove like why this crusades were awesome and morally justified, like this doesn't work as an evidence.
And many were taken as slaves. Christian inhabitants had to pay an enormous tax called the dhimmi tax, and their churches were often shut down. Because of Islamic policies, over the centuries, Christianity in the Middle East and North Africa shrunk from a large majority to a tiny minority. But it actually
Christian did the same thing with the pagans, right? Jupiter and all those temples were temples. All those things were converted into church and things like that. Like Constantine, after Constantine, that same thing happened. I'm not Islamic, but I'm not Muslim, by the way, right? Don't you like, oh, look at that, he's just defending. I'm not Muslim, by the way. I'm Hindu. So, yeah, I don't have any skin in the game, but yeah.
gets even worse. During the days of the Roman Empire, the Mediterranean Sea was a breadbasket of commerce and trade. The Romans had successfully stamped out piracy and created some of the safest waterways in the entire world. Islamic piracy brought all of this to an end. From bases in North Africa and the Middle East, they turned the Mediterranean into an unsafe hellhole. This crashed the European economy and made Europe a miserable place for commerce for almost 400 years. Islam's so-called Golden Age came at Europe and Christianity's expense. This is the true reason that many consider the years 600 AD to 1000 AD a dark age for Europe. It was literally cut off from the entire world and constantly under attack. It was in this...
Yeah, all right. Again, you can make the same case for Christianity, but during the golden age of Islam, a lot of discoveries were made. There's a reason about half of the stars in night sky are named, Arabic. Way too many discoveries happened around the year 1000 in the golden age of Islam, scientific advancement and things like that. What is that thing called that you use to like navigate and things like that? I forgot the name of it. A lot of advancement happened around that time. So again, like the way he's explaining here kind of feels like cherry picking certain things. But yeah, obviously he's not wrong here about unsafe environment, everything. But does that make it morally good? Like, I don't know.
This hellish environment that Christendom finally started to have enough. The first rumblings for a crusade came in 846 when an Arabic expedition to Sicily sailed up the Tiber River and sacked St. Peter's in Rome. A synod in France called for Christian sovereigns to rally against the enemies of Christ, and the Pope, Leo IV, offered a heavenly reward to those who died fighting the Muslims. But it was around 1000 AD when things really escalated on multiple fronts. In the West, the Islamic Caliphate of Cordoba in Iberia began expanding north. It conquered, burned, and enslaved its way through multiple Christian cities, including Barcelona and Leon. It was this expansion campaign that finally provoked the Christian kingdoms to launch the Reconquista to retake Iberia from Islam. But if things looked rough in Western Christendom, they were even worse in the East. In the late 900s, a Central Asian Muslim group called the Seljuk Turks began migrating into Anatolia. In 1064, they completely conquered Armenia and sacked its capital, Ani. The city never recovered from this brutality and remains a ruin to this very day. Almost all of the Armenian population had to migrate southeast to Cilicia, creating an entire new kingdom called Cilician Armenia. In other words, Islam had made the Armenian homeland unlivable. The Turks then turned their expansion into the Byzantine Empire. They began invading western Anatolia in droves. The Byzantines tried to launch counterattacks, but were ultimately defeated at the Battle of Manzikert. After this defeat, Turks began mass migrating into Anatolia, completely altering its demographics. Another region of the Christian world had just become Islamic by force.
Yeah, this is like... even in India, Mughals, which were Islamic, basically destroyed a lot of structures, a lot of records. There is a temple near Maharashtra, not near Maharashtra, in Maharashtra, a bit away from Mumbai, which is completely carved out of a mountain. Like they literally took a stone mountain and carved a temple from it. Shit like this is a lot in India. The records are very sparse, like, okay, how was it done? Okay, it was like, a lot of records were completely destroyed because of the Mughal invasion, who believed in specific religion. So anything that is not that religion is a heresy, and just destroyed books and God knows what, like way too many things. So yeah, Islamic thing like this is like common in around globe. So that is a good point by him. Like that, like cultural destruction has been real. uh I'm sure like Christianity has done the same thing. I don't exactly remember. Like I can't really say. Like I don't know. Comment down if you know of same account. I'm trying to be unbiased here, obviously. Like I said, I'm Hindu. So if anything, I don't have the skip. If anything, I should be, the way history of India has been. Like I should be, against Islam. But I'm defending here Islam, right? So I'm trying to be unbiased here. But there is that element. But throughout the history of this planet, there's always been the case of conqueror coming, destroying, leveling things and destroying books, destroying religion. Even Christianity is that element somewhat. I don't exactly remember something, but I've seen some videos of like burning of books and things. So I guess it depends. But yeah, Islam has a bit more extreme version of it. Isn't Islam supposed to be Abrahamic religion version 3? Christianity being version 2, where Islam says, oh no, God hasn't come here, God's son hasn't come here. It's not Jesus Christ. But God's son hasn't come here because we need to be even more extreme in the way we live. We need to live in like very restrictive form and be more like, basically extreme version of everything. Isn't that supposed to, Islam being extreme, isn't that point of it? That is how Islam came to be. As far as I remember, that's how Abrahamic religion is, right? Version 1 being the Judaism, the original Old Testament. Version 2 being the New Testament, Christianity. Version 3 being Quran, Islam. It's an oversimplified version of it, but yeah.
Here's how historian John J. O'Neill describes the circumstances. These, then, are the major political events which prefigured the First Crusade. Within a span of 35 years, the Turks had seized control of Christian territories larger than the entire region of France, and now they were a real threat to Europe. Now by this point, the Byzantine Empire realized it was incapable of stopping the Islamic hordes by itself. Emperor Alexius Comnenus made a desperate appeal to the Pope and Western Christendom for aid. This was a major deal, because Eastern and Western Christendom had been in schism for almost 50 years by this point.
Yeah.
The Catholic Pope and the Orthodox Patriarchs did not get along, to put it lightly. But the issue had become that serious that they were now willing to cooperate. What made matters even more urgent was that Turks had begun persecuting Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land. Priests like Peter the Hermit, who would become one of the greatest advocates of the Crusades, witnessed this firsthand. This is the geopolitical environment that led to the First Crusade being called. Now, does it seem unreasonable when you get all this other context? This is what Catholic Europeans knew about Islam on the eve of the First Crusade. Muslims were enemies of Christ, they waged wars against non-combatants and enslaved women and children, and they had conquered all of Iberia, Anatolia, and threatened France and Italy. It was important that this all happened at the turn of the first millennia. By this time, the elites of Europe were finally starting to become much wealthier and better educated. They were developing a much stronger grasp of history and world affairs. Europe was safer and more interconnected than any time since the Roman Empire. They were beginning to truly understand just how much damage Islam had done to the Christian world, and how much of a civilizational threat it still represented. All the pieces were now in place for the Crusades to be launched.
Yeah. I mean, I already knew that. I don't know if it's not common knowledge. I thought it was. But yeah, Islam threatened Christian countries. So, like, that's why Crusade was one of the elements, right? It wasn't just about retaking the Holy Land. It was like the crown jewel element. It was mostly fighting back against, like, like Islamic countries usually, slowly taking over Christian countries. But even before Christian became a thing, that was the case with Roman Empire and barbarian countries going left and right, like back and forth. That conquest has been part of it. So Crusades was just that. Like, so far that's been the point of this video. Obviously European kingdoms were like awesome and things like that. Yeah, obviously. But that's like relative lens, isn't it? Like how Christians sees themselves, how Islamic countries sees themselves, different thing. But yeah, conquest has been part of it. Christianity is trying to fight back. That's how history has been. So it just makes sense.
In 1095, the moment had arrived. Pope Urban II called for the First Crusade to retake the Holy Land and drive back Islam. It would be the first of many. An excerpt from Urban's Crusade speech reads, "Your brethren who live in the East are in urgent need of your help, and you must hasten to give them the aid which has been promised them. The heathens have killed many, and they have destroyed churches and devastated the Greek Empire. If you permit them to continue with impunity, the faithful of God will be much more widely attacked by them. On this account, I, or rather the Lord, beseech you as Christ's heralds to publish this everywhere, and to persuade all people of whatever rank to carry aid promptly to those Christians. Let therefore hatred depart from among you, let your quarrels end, let wars cease, and let all dissensions and controversies slumber. It's important to point out how Pope Urban's speech emphasized not only the defense of Christendom, but also the end of internal wars between Christian kingdoms. The Pope envisioned an international brotherhood of Catholics who fought not each other, but their external threats. In any case, the call for crusade was extremely well received. The news spread through all of Europe like wildfire. Tens of thousands of faithful Catholics all across Europe answered the Pope's call. Lowly peasants, ambitious knights, even kings. French, English, Flemish, German, people from all walks of life and all nationalities were inspired to fight for Christendom. It's not really appreciated how much of an accomplishment that this alone was. It's really something entirely unique in human history. The Catholic Church had created a multinational network that united Europeans of all stripes and ethnicities under a common faith with common goals. So many different Europeans being united by one religion and engaged.
All right, okay, common enemy uniting people who are all already Christians. That's not something that unheard of. Might make sense. Yeah.
In a civilization-wide struggle had not happened before and has not happened since. Catholicism achieved.
Yeah, I mean, but there haven't been a bigger threat like this since then, so kind of makes sense. And before that, Roman Empire acted as a Roman Empire. So how you gonna see the history of it? Kind of makes sense. If you see since Christianity became so big since Constantine, Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire, right? Slowly since then, it hasn't been bigger threat until the Crusades where they united, which makes sense. Common enemy unites people.
What hundreds of other religions and ideologies could not. And perhaps this is why our modern secular system demonizes the Crusades.
One of the most shameful undertakings ever embarked upon by our species.
Now, did every crusade always go the best it could have gone? No, of course not.
Okay, Crusades were kind of questionable the way it unfolded, but that's how humans work. As far as its goal, I mean, it was like conquest in the end. Like I said, it's geopolitics, even though it looks like religion, but really, religion was part of geopolitics back then. Islamic countries are taking over Europe. Christian Europe has to fight back. So, the way the channel guy is portraying feels somewhat biased. The way saying, oh, Islam just sucked during the golden age. That's not true. Christianity was so awesome. It got, kind of destroyed. Europe got destroyed once Islamic took over. Yeah, that's how conquest works. If some other party comes and takes it over, things go to worse short term. That's how it works. But also the other guy, he showed about the history guy who said Crusades were the worst thing ever. It was a war, just like any other war. Calm down. Now, what are they supposed to do? Not fight back? Eventually, things would have gone back to all the way to France and Britain. That's how conquest works. So they have to fight back.
Some crusades were huge successes, like the Reconquista, while others were dismal failures, like the Fourth Crusade. But even the failures are understandable in context. Crusaders were going halfway across the world to fight unfamiliar enemies on their own home turf. The logistics of the Crusades alone were a monumental undertaking. And despite all these challenges, the Christian forces still often came out on top. The First Crusade could really only be qualified as a roaring success. Crusaders defeated almost every Muslim army they encountered and captured Jerusalem. For the first time in hundreds of years, the Holy Land was back under Christian control. The First Crusade also established Crusader states that would remain in the Middle East for another century. One crusade I personally like was the Sixth Crusade. Jerusalem had fallen back into Muslim hands, but they had started to fight each other in a civil war. Emperor Frederick II of the Holy Roman Empire negotiated a peaceful transfer of Jerusalem back into Christian rule. Jerusalem was retaken without a single drop of blood being spilled. A decisive diplomatic victory, even if the Muslims would eventually take it back. As you can tell,
in that RPG game, he spent all his skill point into speech. There you go.
During this time period, it was hard for just about anybody to hold on to Jerusalem for long. In the end, the Crusades secured Christendom's western flank and bought its eastern flank another 300 years. It wasn't until the emergence of the Ottoman Empire in the 1300s that Islam once again threatened Europe. But even when that happened, Crusaders once again went out to stop them. The Crusade of Nicopolis and the Crusade of Varna are two big examples of this. While they didn't succeed in stopping the Ottomans, they did show that Christendom was still capable of uniting to fight common threats in the name of God. And in the end, 300
I mean, yeah, the kinda, sure. Through the history, Christian kingdoms usually fight each other. Look at all the denominations Christians have. Yeah. I guess you could say like Islam is so strict and extreme enough that they are more united than the other religions, I guess. I don't know.
100 years later, in the 1600s, Ottoman power would be broken by what was basically a crusade. The Christian Holy League of Austria, Poland, Venice, and Russia united to defeat the Ottomans and drive them back from Europe. Despite all of this, some people say the Crusades failed. But did they? Europe was Christian when the Crusades were launched, and it's still majority Christian today, 1,000 years later, although it is secularizing due to modernist ideologies. Ironically, it's only after the Pope lost his power to call crusades that Christianity started to decline in Europe. But when we look back at the
Did Alexander the Great failed? Because he took over places, died, and like places went back. What is failing? Did they do something when they're supposed to do? Did that have an effect? That didn't really fail. If you see like through with a hindsight, did that even made any difference? Like long term, like the other countries took the places back again. Yeah, but it did what it's supposed to, right? So what does the fail mean? What is this, a video game? Like objectives failed? Like that's not how it works.
these events, history shows it's not a shameful chapter of Catholic history, but the total opposite. The Christian world defended itself and spread the faith abroad after hundreds and hundreds of years of abuse. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the Crusades were awesome indeed. This has been Pax, and thank
Yeah, all right. So the point of the video is like Christian countries united fight against an enemy that was like slowly coming to invade all of them, which is true. This is how history is riddled with things. So yeah, obviously they were going to fight back, which what Crusade was. Morally, like what is morally? Like any conquest, you can't really paint it in a morally way. Any kind of like, if you go through the history, moral is usually starts to become gray. So what is even morally? So it depends on how you see it. Awesome, like okay, it was part of the geopolitics at the time. It was necessary at some level, right? Sure. So either side, one side say it was so awesome, it was just like with a glazing eye. That's not true. Others say it was completely evil and the worst part of history of humans. No, that's not true either. So like you need to find the answer in the center somewhat, obviously. But yeah, it makes sense. Right, well, if you like my reason, don't forget to subscribe and yeah, comment down if I got anything wrong, I guess. Like I've been watching history videos for 5 years. I know some of it, but obviously I'm not a historian, so I don't know everything. So comment down if I got something wrong. Then yeah, I'll see you next time.